Chapter 16. The Dwarf Blacksmith. Ah, why am I so busy? Kaijin, a dwarf man, was grumbling to himself. He furiously thought inside, geez, the Empire in the East might make a move. What kind of idiocy is that? Indeed, for the past 300 years it had remained a peaceful era. Kaijin couldn't understand why would the Empire, which was plenty rich, enough as it was, go through the trouble of invading other lands. Although for this dwarf who made a living through creating weapons, the beginning of the war should have been a really good chance to make huge profits. But still, why did my workload have to increase so suddenly? Was all that ran through the dwarf's head. Moreover, there was one thing that he was greatly worried about. Even as he cursed and fantasized about beating up a certain government minister, the dwarf was in deep consideration regarding another matter. What should I do? He breathed a tired sigh as he continued to think. There was almost no time remaining for him to complete his work orders. Missing the deadline would be a huge blow to his reputation. Saying I couldn't do it was simply not an option. Right now, his future depended on whether he would receive contact from the friends he had sent word for. He was well known for his skill as a blacksmith, but there were still some things he couldn't do. What was troubling him so much was the lack of materials to create weapons with, and then the people he had been waiting for finally appeared before him. Sorry, we should have made it yesterday, but there was a matter beyond our control. Saying that, the three men entered Kaijin's shop. There were three of them, all siblings, and also all of the dwarven race of and also all of the dwarven race. All of them were in the business of mining. The eldest son, Garm, he was a skilled armorsmith. The second son, Dold, he was for known his first-rate craftsmanship. Chip. The third son, Mild, though he was a dwarf of few words, he was an expert at what he did. Having knowledge in construction and well versed in the arts, he was a one of a kind genius. By all rights, these three outstanding talents should have been the owners of their own shops, but unfortunately, they were all rather clumsy in regards to general living. Blessed only in their respective specializations, they were hopeless when it came to planning things or business traits, which was why they were frequently taken advantage of by the people around them. And so their shop was taken over by a person they had trusted in. And what was more, they even fell into a trap laid by a fellow apprentice who was jealous of their talents and ended up literally kicking an officer of the king and was now under watch by the country. Having nowhere else to go to, they chose to rely on Kaijin, who was their childhood friend as well as the big brother of the group. Although he ruefully thought to himself, he should have depended on me sooner, he was aware that it was already far too late to say that he had decided to shelter three brothers into his shop and hire them to work for him. However, there was no work to entrust to them. While Kaijin's shop mainly sold weapons, his other goods were bought from other suppliers. Since he personally made his weapons, there would be no problem in receiving assistance in regards to that. However, he feared that unnecessary troubles would occur if his shop suddenly stopped trading with the other suppliers and began self-producing armors and crafts. There was a need to continue business operations as usual until the three settled down. This was why he had tasked the three brothers with overseeing laborers in the gathering of ores and raw materials. After hearing their circumstances, he found out that they had encountered a demon. Kaijin was greatly perplexed at this. Nevertheless, their safety was something to be happy about. Thinking of how fortunate the three were to avoid any injuries, he voiced his relief. Well, it's good that you guys are safe. You must have done well in running away. It's great that none of you were hurt. Indeed, as long as they were safe, it was always possible to go back to gathering the needed ores. But while he was thinking to himself, the safety of my friends are much more important. The three brothers exchanged awkward looks with each other. They said, no, it's not like we managed to get away in time. To tell you the truth, even now I still can't come to terms with what happened yesterday. Third bro is silent. From then on, he listened as they explained what happened in detail. They claimed a mysterious slime gave us medicine that brought us back to life. Normally, he would have laughingly replied, I don't believe that, but he knew that the brothers were never the kind to lie, or rather they just weren't skillful enough in telling lies, which meant that what they said was true. However, seeing as it was only yesterday that a demon attack had resulted in casualties, hiring new miners would most likely be impossible. Due to yesterday's events, the men he had employed were resigning one after another. Since they also incurred considerable injuries themselves, he could not really complain. In regular circumstances, this would precisely be the time to go to the Freedom Association with a request, but that was not an option. He had already issued a request for the gathering of ores, but there was yet to be a reply. It was the same situation for every other workshop, and so the stocks of goods in the market were deteriorating. In the case of commissioning guards, not only would the fee be comparatively high, they would only work within the extent of the request. If you asked for escorts, they would do just that, and no more. And when it came to the price of adventurers capable of defeating a B-rank demon, it wouldn't do any good. Far from making a profit, he would go bankrupt instead. He thought to himself, why did such a strong demon have to come out in the outer zone of the mines? Kaijin sighed heavily. He contemplated on what he should do. The deadline was drawing nearer. He even considered going so far as to personally gather all the ores with his own hands. But no good ideas popped into his head, and time was running short. The four dwarfs were all lost in thought as they looked at one another, and it was then that a strange group came into sight, returning to slime perspective. Hey, big bro, you there? While calling out to someone inside, Captain San, now known as Kaido-san, entered the shop. In the midst of our conversations, we had become much more open and friendly towards each other and were now on a first name basis. I was told that the owner of the shop, the one he wanted to introduce me to, was his actual elder brother. From the outside, it looked like the kind of small shop run by a stubborn old uncle. Sorry to intrude. Rimuru greets. How do you do? Kobita-kun greets, saying our greetings. We followed Kaido-san inside the shop. The moment we entered, we saw that many eyes were focused on us. Ah, all three dwarfs, brothers, had exclaimed at the same time. The three dwarfs I saw yesterday had all raised their voices in surprise and were looking over here. They were looking healthy now, although for some reason they were making depressed faces. And then surely, as expected, there was a grim-looking uncle whose face didn't lose one bit to those of the scary town construction old man. He was the owner of the shop. Honestly, he didn't resemble Kaido-san at all. What's this? They friends of yours? Kaijin-san, it's the slime, the one that saved us yesterday. Yeah, that's right. So the captain-san was the younger brother of our shop owner. Third bro is silent. Oh, so that's the slime you were talking about? I've heard you were the one who saved these guys. You have my gratitude. Not at all. I don't feel as if I've done that much. Or perhaps I might have. Ha 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 ha. For one such as I, who easily gets carried away and goes too far, words of praise is taboo because I wouldn't be able to calm down for the next long while. So why have you come here today? After slightly regaining his composure, Uncle San asked a question. All of us had moved further inside of the shop to talk, and then Kaido-san began briefly explaining my situation. I also chipped into the conversation when needed to help move it along smoothly. But I must say, this third dwarf brother called Mild-san, he never says a single thing. I mean, how did he still manage to actually communicate? It was mysterious. I understand what you want now, but I'm sorry, I don't think I can be of any help. The thing is, we've already received a request from a certain country. He told us that it was a secret and explained that what was happening worldwide while withholding the important information. It appeared that many countries were feeling pressured by the fear of a war occurring because of a certain fool somewhere, and that was why craft orders for weapons and armors were being issued everywhere. Putting this information into consideration, it made sense that the medicines and other goods were out of stock yesterday. And so, about the request I received, although I did manage to make 200 steel spares overnight, but on the other hand, regarding the main order of 20 swords, but not even a single one has been made yet. I don't have the materials, you see. Despite hanging his head low, Uncle San still grumbled. If it can't be done, isn't it fine to cancel the order? It was a reasonable question asked by Kaido-san. You idiot, even I told them from the beginning that it was unreasonable. But then that shitty government minister Bester butted in and said, fame throughout our kingdom for your skills cannot a man of your caliber Kaijin complete a small task of this degree is the kind of drivel he prattled on to me. Not to mention, this was said in front of the king. Would you forgive him, that shitty bastard? He was furious the whole time he talked. As we continued to converse, I learned that in the past the third dwarf, brother Malsan, had rejected the request from Minister Bester to build the house that he wanted. Bearing a grudge from that incident, the minister had repeatedly harassed Malsan to the point where he was starting to think about escaping from the country. And I was told that the one who took him in at that time was Kaijin-san. However, you looked at it, it was definitely an unjustified resentment towards Mild-san. Then I thought to myself, wasn't it likely that the minister brought up all the materials to obstruct Kaijin-san's work? Excuse me. If you couldn't make the swords due to the lack of materials, does that mean that spares require different materials? And to my question, Kaijin-san replied, yeah, the swords require a special material called magic ore. The spares only needed to be made out of steel. He had replied in a very tired manner. Without the materials, even the master blacksmith was just an ordinary person. It must be frustrating for him. But when you think about it, it wasn't, what? You think about it, wasn't it possible that the minister was waiting for Kaijin-san to come to him begging for help? To top it off, it takes a whole day to complete one sword. Even by using the assembly line system for efficient production, it would still take 2 weeks to make 20 of them. I was about to ask about the time limit, but then decided not to. The despair on his face told me everything I needed to know, but he told me anyway. The deadline is by this weekend, the first day of the next week. I have to deliver it all to the king. This job is something that is assigned to each and every craftsman commissioned by this country. If you can't complete it, it is possible to have your qualifications as a craftsman revoked. In other words, only 5 or so days left to complete the order. Or rather, since any progress couldn't be made today, then only 4 days until the deadline. I got the feeling like the talk was getting serious. I had nothing to do with this, so why was I here? Just wait a moment. I can seem to understand what's going on. Actually, if it's magic ores, don't I have some? Well, it's not like it was my business. I didn't know if they were misunderstanding something or not, but everyone was looking towards me being stared at by men. Doesn't make me happy. Their eyes seemed to be telling me, hey you, can't you do something about this? These people, what did they think a slime was capable of? Guess I've got no choice. For now, I should magnanimously lend my help. them. And while I'm at that, I'll have them assist me with the revival of our goblin village. Foo foo foo, ha 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 ha. Hey now, isn't this talk just too insignificant? Uncle, this thing, can you use it? With a loud thud, I placed before their very eyes a fully extracted ore on the work table, and then I went to lay down on the sofa with my legs outstretched. That's how I imagined it. Hey, 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 isn't this magic ore? Moreover, it's of unbelievably high purity. Actually, that wasn't magic ore, it was a pre-made magic steel ingot. Hey now, uncle, are your eyes just for show? If he wasn't even capable of identifying this, I doubted he would be of any use to me. I would sell the material to him at a suitable price but wouldn't further involve myself. What? You don't mean? No, that's ridiculous. Are you saying that the whole of this ingot is magic steel? As expected, Uncle San saw through it, but still, like how he was astonished. I was pleasantly surprised as well. Will you turn this over to me? Of course, I'll pay the asking price. Foo foo foo, I caught him. Well now, how should I go about this? Ah, what is it you want? I'll do anything that is within my ability. I was waiting for those words. You've already heard of our circumstances, yes? Among Uncle San's acquaintances, I want you to find someone capable of teaching crafting techniques. What did you say? You're okay with just that? Our first priority is to secure the life necessities, clothing, and housing, and also from now on, I want to request an intermediary for supplying clothes and someone capable of making weapons. If that's all you need, there'll be no problem at all. With this agreement, I handed over the magic steel ingot to Uncle San, Kaijin, and Van-san, Kaijin, and in return, I gained a promise. We planned to go over the smaller details after he completed his work orders. From the response he showed, it would have most likely been fine to request a little more, but wanting too much wasn't good. After all, greed was always the cause of my failures. I've learned from my past mistakes. The very same day after everyone had dinner, Kaido-san left us and returned to his post. Even though he was captain of the guards, it wasn't a good example he was setting by skipping his work from noon. But well, it was for the sake of guiding me around. I have nothing to say about that. And then the three dwarf brothers had excessively expressed their thanks to me. It appeared that because they thought it was their fault that Uncle San Kaijin was under supervision of the country, they felt very grateful that I helped out. When I asked if you like, why don't you when I asked if you like, why don't you three join us? Their eyes went wide with surprise and then they began a discussion among themselves. Well, I was sure they would arrive to some sort of conclusion, but it was about time to ask the most important question. Uncle San, there are 4 remaining days, including today. That makes it 4.5 days. Will it be enough time to finish your work? To be honest, I don't think it can be done. Even so, I have no choice but to do it. So he was planning on going ahead with only fighting spirit. However, I know this. What can't be done can't be done. To be successful in something, all the components that makes it possible must be assembled. There was nothing to be done about it. Since I started this, I'll see it through the end. I understand. I have a plan. For the time being, wait until tomorrow. I need you to calm down and make me one sword that is of the finest quality possible. What are you saying? Aren't you an amateur in this? What can you do to help? It's a secret. Believe in me. If you can't, then do as you like. However, I'm sure that you won't be able to fulfill the request. It's okay to trust in you, right? In the case that you can't make this succeed, I won't be paying you for the magic steel. Well, it wouldn't make a difference to me either way, since I wouldn't be able to pay anyway. But if you manage to keep your promise, I swear to keep my side of the promise as well. I'll prepare for you the best workers there is. We've made our promises, and the promise made was something to be kept. End of chapter 16. Chapter 17. The outcome of the promise. It was the beginning of a new morning. Everyone had gathered in the workroom. Yesterday, we had borrowed a vacant room that was meant for in apprentices in order to stay the night. When we first entered the workroom, there were already 4 people inside that were just staring at the magic steel ingot, all the while sighing. They were turning it over and over in their hands, checking if it was real. The ingot I had handed over was only the size of a human's fist. I thought it was an overly exaggerated reaction, so I asked, "Is it really that rare to see? What are you even saying?" Uncle San Kaijin answered me and followed it up with an explanation. Magic ore was the raw form of magic steel. Even if its unrefined form, magic ore was considered to be valuable. The reasoning was very simple: its rarity and its versatility. There was a major element that existed in this world called magic essence. This magic essence that didn't exist in my original world occupied a major role in this one. When a demon was defeated, every rarely it would drop a condensed mass of magic essence called the magic stone. This magic stone was something like a concentration of energy, which was used as fuel for an invention unique to this world, spirit engineering. This magic stone acted as a core for superior demons, and on top of being more beautiful than most precious gems, it was said to contain an unimaginable amount of energy. So, as such, magic stones of superior demons were used as the core for many manufactured goods. Craftsmen were said to even use this as raw materials for the accessories they created. Those items would grant various effects upon the wearer, such as an increase in ability or an effect that would bind the item to the user only. And between magic ores and regular ores, there was one decisive point that set them apart. Without exception, magic ores would only form around the vicinity of superior demons. The reason was that when regular ores are exposed to dense concentrations of magic essence, they would slowly absorb it over a very long period of time. Only when a great amount is contained would regular ores finally undergo a change into magic ores. It was similar to how minerals would suddenly change. Naturally, only powerful demons would be inhabiting locations with high levels of magic essence. Magic ore was hard to find in locations like the habitats of weak demons that the adventurers defeated to earn pocket money. For magic ores to form, at the very least, it needed to be a place that B-ranked demons or above would live in. Incidentally, this was the first time I learned some information regarding the rank of demons, so that's how it is. Well then, I wonder, I should also be around B-rank. If that's what you think, it must be true. Though you're alone in thinking that. Everyone thinking to themselves. Most likely, everyone apart from that Ninigupta was thinking the same thing. While leaving the idiot aside, magic ore was already such a difficult thing to obtain, but the amount of magic steel that could be extracted from that said ore was only roughly 3 to 5%. In other words, a lump of magic steel the size of a fist was worth money that was 20 times its value in weight. The way money was valued here was almost the same as in my original world, a common way of measuring money. The gold standard system was adopted across the nations. Well, what all this meant to me was that the metal was much rarer than I had guessed, as expected of me, not missing a single thing in the cave. By the way, I became just a little bit scared about the fact that I secretly possessed a huge amount of that magic steel. There was no way anyone could find out, but what if someone did? Was I thinking this because I was pretty bourgeois? Anyhow, the main issue was from here on. Magic steel was not simply valuable just because of its rarity. There was a true reason for its worth. That was because the metal possessed a property that had extremely good affinity with guiding magic power. It was possible to control magic essence to a certain degree using imagery in the mind. My magic perception was the same, and even the effects of of water manipulation was brought about the same way. The majority of skills used by demons were based on using magic essence in such a way. Although I didn't know much in regards to magic, I had suspected that the theory behind its use was no doubt similar. And so what if a huge amount of magic essence was included in the raw materials of a weapon? Astonishingly, apparently, it will become a weapon that grows. How romantic. What's it like? I want it. Though I managed to firmly hold my inner thoughts back, the words that almost burst from my throat still remained on the very tips of my tongue. It was a weapon that responded to the thoughts of the user, gradually altering its shape into the desired ideal form, and depending on the magic power of the user, it was even possible to freely transform its form in the midst of battle. Furthermore, due to its high affinity with magic essence, it would amplify the power of skills. In a way, when compared to normal weapons, unless there was a great difference in talent, the magic weapon would definitely bring its user victory. Perhaps, though this was just my speculation, of a case of pouring money and utmost use of technology. If a superior demon's magic stone was inserted into a blade of pure magic steel, would it possibly become a sword of fire or sword of ice? Though in my heart I was screaming, hurry and make it already. It was no good to get too excited. I felt that it would be done, so I wanted to procure a magic stone if the occasion presented itself. After a long time of explanations, Uncle San and company were now working on the sword. For future reference, we were also observing what they did, although that Gupta was no doubt just sleeping. When creating a sword, there were a variety of kinds that could be made. In my heart, the strongest sword is of course the Japanese sword. However, even among katanas, there was still all kinds of varieties. To contemplate on what kind of sword you could make was also something quite interesting to think about. It had been 10 hours since they had begun work. A long story that looked nothing out of the ordinary had been completed. What's this? A large part of magic steel was still left unused. The remaining amount was still largely the size of a fist. It was to the extent that made me think to myself, would it be alright to use just that much for one sword? Upon asking, I was given an answer saying, if all of the magic steel was used as a raw material for the sword, who knows how much money that would cost. If you thought about it, it was natural. It was no wonder they didn't make such extravagant things like elemental swords. I now understood that it simply required too much money. Apparently, they had used magic steel as the ore part, while most of the plate was made out of ordinary iron and steel. I was told that magic essence in the magic steel would seep into the iron and steel parts, then eventually become completely merged. It was said that the more it aged, the stronger it became. Another special characteristic of magic weapons was that the blade would never rust or become chipped. Curiously, I was told that the weapons had a life of their own. If it became completely broken or bent, then the magic essence would burst out and dissipate all at once. Uncle San had explained all that to me, all the while holding up and displaying the sword he had completed. It was quite interesting to listen to. I took up the finished sword and gazed at it in my hands, though I had no hands. Looking carefully, although it was of a simple design, it was perfectly straight. It could be said that there was no unnecessary part to it. It didn't appear to be meant for pure cutting, which was the main principle behind the Japanese sword, but still seemed capable to be used for slashing attacks. I see. The goal of this design was to use this simplicity as a base to make it easier to realize an individual's respective ideal form. Keeping that in mind, I could agree with the way it was made. Well then, as promised, Uncle San and the others had completed the magnificent sword for me. Now it was my turn. Alright, from here on, I'll be working in secret. I'm sorry, but after confirming the raw materials, I want everyone to leave the room. Saying that, I made sure that everyone would leave the room. After all, I couldn't afford to let anyone know my manufacturing method, mainly because it would be troublesome to explain. All the necessary materials are assembled in this room. But will you be alright? If needed, I can help out. I'll be fine. Rather than that, during the next 3 days, make sure not to peek in the room, okay? It's a promise. I got it. I believe in you and wait. After that, Uncle San and the others left the room. For some reason, Gobta also went with them. There might be a need to strangle some sense into that idiot at least once. Now then, today's recipe and the menu shall be how to make longsword a la carte. The method of production was simple. The first step was to swallow up the model product. Next, what I had to do with all these materials lined up here was to swallow them all. Chew, chew, gulp, and then I would mix them well inside my stomach. All I had to do was repeat that process 19 times over, and it would be finished. Easy, wasn't it? But still, good children should never imitate this, right? And that was how I carried out my work with my head full of silly thoughts. This was bad. The time needed to copy one sword took roughly 10 seconds. 190 seconds, a little over 3 minutes, and I had made all 19 long swords. It hadn't been 5 minutes since I had driven out Uncle San and the others. How should I put it? Even though I knew I could do it, the way I did it so easily made me feel a little guilty toward all of the hardworking craftsmen sans out there. Predator was seriously too cheat-like. Well, what now? Since I had told them something like, don't peek in for 3 days, was I to confine myself in here for next 3 days? No, as one would expect, there wouldn't be any use in pointlessly staying here. I might as well be out with it and tell them bluntly that I was done. Bang! Loudly opening the door, I stepped outside. Gaijin-san and the three brothers were looking over in worry as they hurriedly rose to stand up. Gabuta was sleeping. You to be asleep within a mere 5 minutes since I wasn't there. What was up with you? Indeed, that was the moment I decided somewhere in my mind I would really strangle him sometime. Hey, what's wrong? Did something happen? Was the materials perhaps not enough, or was it that it was impossible after all? Everyone was questioning with the same concern in their faces. No, actually, easy. All those eyes full of worry was hard to stand. I couldn't help but put on airs, still the same as ever. I had such a bad personality. I'm sure I couldn't be cured of this, even if I died. Just kidding. Actually, I've already finished it all. Huh? Altogether. They raised their shocked voices in perfect harmony. Well, of course, they'd be surprised. Cheers. In honor of successfully completing our work, we were drinking in a bar. We were celebrating under the pretext of having made sure the goods were safely delivered. Well, I did tell them that it wasn't a necessary thing to do, but they said now there'll be a plenty of pretty elder sisters there. Yeah, yeah, young pretties and mature ladies. It's just the right place for gentlemen to visit. Third bro is silent, sort of. PRRN sex drive has activated to an amazing tentacle. 100%. Hey now, if Master Rimuru doesn't go, the party won't begin. I didn't want to, but there was no choice. These guys were really a handful. Man, my sincere image of a refined man will go to waste. This was really troubling. I was told the name of the establishment was Night Butterfly. Would there really be butterflies? I wouldn't forgive them if there were moths. No, it's not like I'm interested in that, okay? And while thinking these thoughts, we entered the shop. Oh my, welcome to our shop. Collective welcome by waitresses or hostesses. Phew, extremely beautiful women were standing all lined up. Oh, those long ears. Erofu. No, I mean, it's an elf. Erofu. Erofu. No, I mean, it's an elf. What? Wow, oh man, their clothes were too revealing. You could almost see, but couldn't. What was with that? I was even using magic perception with all of my strength. Normally, I use it on a 10% output, low energy consumption mode. These elder sisters were all resolutely dancing in between the lines of modesty. What was this a challenge? Was this a challenge towards me? Damn it all. Wow, how cute. Wait, even though I had my eyes on it first. Smush. Boyoyon, bouncing sound effects. Basically, it's here on my body, a sensation of boyon. On my back, it was boyon. Was this paradise? Although you seem discontent at first, it looks like you're having a great time with it. Gasp. Oh no, for the great me to be like this. No, not that much. I guess that was a bit too forced. Not a single one of them believed in me. However, I couldn't help it. What could I do? I mean, right now I'm on top of an elf's lap and begging and being hugged from behind. My heart is so deeply moved. If only my late son, currently non-existent, was still alive, he would be so excited and frolicking about. We were passing away the time and enjoying ourselves when someone interrupted us. My, isn't this Kaijin to know? That's no good at all, to bring a vulgar demon into such a refined establishment as this. A provoking voice had called over to where we were. Who was that? Who was this old man? All of a sudden, our surroundings had quietened down. as if they disliked that old man. The serving girls all had a hint of dislike on their faces, but it was hard to notice unless you carefully observed them. Unusually for a dwarf, the old man was a slender build and rather tall, though I say that he was around the height of a normal human. Hey, madam, do you permit the entering of demons into the shop? No, no, even though it's a demon, it was only a harmless looking slime. So, huh? It's still a demon. Am I wrong? Do you mean to say that a slime isn't a demon? No, it's not like that. I never meant. Madam San had replied noncommittally in an evasive manner, trying to avoid those angry words, but the old man paid no further attention to her. It was plain to see that the old man's objective was us. This isn't good. That's the minister, Bester. So that was the rumored minister, Bester. I see. How should I put it? His face had a high, strong, and obstinate look about it. At that moment, for a demon, this would suit you well. Saying such nonsense, he splashed the top of my head with water. That really got on my nerves, but I firmly put up with it. Since my opponent was the minister, I couldn't let my quick temper get the better of me and make trouble for Uncle San, Kaijin, or this shop's Mama-san to be banned from this shop or something like that. I didn't want to experience such a sad thing. But just when I had resolved to endure it all, oi, just because we were nice and quiet, you get full of yourself. Uncle San kicked the table flying with a bang and stood up. Hey, bastard, acting so rudely to my guest. Are you ready for what's coming to you? Hang on. Kaijin-san, the other party is the minister. Is that okay? Minister Bester had become stiff from astonishment, and I was also jumping up and down in panic. In a panic, a gentle and soft sensation exploded from my back. It wasn't on purpose, absolutely. Yo, you bastard, to dare to use such words towards myself. Minister Bester couldn't even properly speak due to his anger and surprise. Isn't it about time you became silent? Bellowing in a fury, Kaijin-san sent an unhesitating fist flying towards Minister Bester's face. Rimuru Dono, you were searching for a skilled craftsman, right? Would I be looking? You would be far from lacking, but I should say, will this be all right? But well, after hitting the minister, there would be no place for him in the country now. However, in a man's life, there would be times when words were unneeded. I'll take you up on those words. I look forward to working with you, Kaijin. I didn't care about the minor details. If Kaijin wanted to come with me, I was just fine with that. Pretty words can go to hell. I'll be satisfied with living the way I want. Kaijin and I passionately nodded to one another, and so our promise was fulfilled. But still, from here on, how should we escape the country? As expected, when in society, if we didn't act with prudence, a mountain load of problems would come about. Even if you were to put up a front, those problems wouldn't simply go away. End of chapter 17. Chapter 18. The end of turmoil. Okay, skip the translator's notes. Now then, of course, hitting a cabinet minister is very bad, of course. Brother, what have you done? So said Kaido, having brought in the soldiers, never missing a day of service. His earlier absence was surprising. He was so diligent that even when invited to go drinking, he'd refuse by saying he had duties to attend to. Thus, for an incident to occur while he was on duty was naturally surprising. They could easily run away, but that would be a poor choice. Just some light punishment to idiot who dared being rude to my benefactor, Rimurudana. He replied while pointing at Minister Bester, who was being nursed by 4 soldiers. Bester, on the other hand, was so shocked and surprised that he couldn't even stand. Blood was dripping from his nose. He glared stupidly at me. Not even in his wildest dreams had he imagined being punched. Thus, he was so surprised that he probably didn't even feel the pain. Oi, oi, just some light punishment. Making an enemy of the minister is very bad. Kaido muttered with a foreboding sigh. Anyways, I'll have to restrain the people present, he said, and have his subordinates in order, and gave his subordinates an order, but only audible to us, he added. We won't harm you, so please come peacefully, he mumbled. Of course, I had no intention of causing further trouble, thus moving towards Mama-san. I handed her 5 gold coins, and in reply to her surprise, I included the inconvenience fee. I'll be back. Such were my salutations. This is a good shop, and I'd be very upset if I could no longer come here. That is how we were being escorted away by the soldier. Aren't we forgetting something? Right, we forgot Gobta. We didn't bring that idiot to the shop. In any case, that foolish action seems to have earned Kaijin the punishment in the Psyche Hell. I thought they'd hang him upside down or something, so this seems bad, which is why I wrapped Gupta up with sticky thread and hung him from the ceiling. Wait, that's heartless. Take me there too. And though he cried out similar grief-stricken phrases, hoping that would listen, but to these words, idiot, your actions have their own consequences. If you don't like it, just summon up the rest. Stormfang wolves. We left him with hanging there with what we thought was an impossible task. Anyways, the goblins, or rather the hobgoblins, should be fine even if they receive no food or water for a week. Though if it Though if the confinement continues any longer, we'll have to break out and save Gopta. And having so decided, I forgot about him for the time being. My conscience did ask, isn't this too pitiful? But he's a sturdy guy, he'll be fine. So the 5 of us were brought into the royal palace. But I may have exaggerated a bit. We weren't restrained with much force, felt more like we were coming voluntarily, well, we're forced into doing so. As a result, we spent 2 days in prison, or so I'd like to call it, but we received good food and the room was amicably furnished. All five were placed in the same place, so rather than a prison, it was just a big room. Their treatment of us was also relatively pleasant. My short temper got you in this mess. Forgive me. Kaijin came over to apologize. However, no one gathered here particularly minded in the first place. Kaijin said, "We're fine. Don't sweat it." "Exactly. Don't worry about it, Pops." The three seem to be of the same opinion. That aside, once we're freed, we intend to come along with Kaijin-san. Rimuro-dana, would our presence be a bother? Question mark. The third also seemed like he wanted to say something, but as I clearly lacked the power to understand, I was just happy with the sentiment. Alright, I guess I'll say it again. You'll be in my care. However, I plan to work you hard, so be prepared. Yeah, and well, that's the kind of discussion we had. The first day had thus passed, and on the second night, oh, about that cabinet minister, he really seemed to hate Kaijin, didn't he? Was there a reason for that? Nonchalantly asked, but hearing this, Kaijin grimaced and began his tale. So apparently, Kaijin used to be one of the captains of the Royal Knights. That is, there are 7 platoons among the Royal Knights, with each having their own captain. Construction platoon, commoner platoon, emergency relief platoon, heavy armament platoon, magic assault platoon, magic support platoon, and the most important, the King's personal Royal Guard. Kaijin served as the captain of the construction platoon. His aide at the time was none other than Bester. That guy was from a family of a marquis, and they say he bought his status with gold. Thus he was jealous of me, who was a commoner born of commoners. Must have been difficult, I imagine. Receiving orders from a mere commoner must have been very disgraceful. I myself did not try to be considerate of my subordinates' feelings. I just desperately tried to please His Majesty. And then that incident occurred. Having so it introduced, he continued to discuss that incident. An incident that resulted in Kaijin leaving the army. Magic battle gear incident. At the time, the construction platoon had no new inventions and was evaluated the worst among the 7 platoons. In a nation founded in technological progress, the construction platoon should be flourishing, so claimed Bester's group. For now, we should carefully continue our research, so claimed Kaijin's group. The arguments fueled further rivalry and debates never produced any results. At the same time, they did have a joint project with the elves on the magical battle gear. We must succeed with this project and forever establish our name, was what Bester thought. As a result of his independent and rash action, the demonic sorcery corps had gone out of control and the project halted indefinitely. Had they carefully assembled the most talented group, the Magic Battle Gear project would not have met such an end. That. In conclusion, Kaijin took the blame and left the army. As for Bester, he was so desperate to push his failure on Kaijin that he had forged military records and planted other false evidence. In short, Bester is a stereotypical villain, and in some sense, he's easy to understand. So to summarize, Kaijin was waiting for the time the country would need him, and would immediately jump at the opportunity to come back without realizing that it would cause him harm. That kind of story. But really, wouldn't the death penalty suit cowardly bastards like Bester the best? Well, maybe the death penalty would be going too far. Well, in any case, with my departure, maybe even he can finally relax. Those words ended his tale. After hearing about the incident, the three brothers also seem to have started to hate the minister. Well, such a story will make even me hate him. However, he did hit a noble. It would be strange for him to leave without any trouble. And in response to my worries, it should be fine, probably. Although retired, my position as a captain did earn me the rank of baronet. Had it been a case of a commoner hitting a noble, I probably wouldn't be able to avoid the death penalty. Having said that, he laughed loudly. I couldn't laugh at all, though. If worst comes to worst, we're breaking out. As for the completely unrelated person, me, I'll just pretend to be a normal slime until things quiet down. So I silently thought, and the day of the trial came. We were led before the king, the dwarf's hero king. Though in front of him, he couldn't feel that overpowering aura. The current king, Gazelle Duargo, with his eyes closed, he sits deeply on the throne, looking like a typical dwarf. He had a sturdy build, his armor concealed his excessive energy, though he could easily be distinguished by his darker skin and jet black hair swept back. He's strong. Been a while since my instincts last cried out in alarm. To both of his sides, the knights stand at attention, though I feel that those two are strong as well. They seem dull in comparison to the king. As that guy is just a monster. I had planned to run away if needed, but with this, his mere presence forced my distracted mind to focus. This was probably the first time I felt danger in this world. There was one man kneeling before the king as if confirming something. Having received the king's permission, he stood, and the trial shall now begin. Silence your voices. He informed us of its beginning. Taking up an hour, both side stories were presented. The parties in question, ourselves, were not permitted to speak. The only ones who could freely speak are nobles rank, count, and above. The rest must wait for the king's explicit permission. If I had to speak, what would I say? Speak out of turn, and your guilt shall be confirmed. Moreover, will also include a free insult the king special. Even if the charges against you were false, the rules stay the same. No choice but to leave everything to your representative. That representative these past 2 days has shown his face many times. If I had to say, he's kind of like our lawyer. I wonder if he's any good. Those kind of worries tend to prove true too often. Doesn't this way the drunk and relaxed Bester Dono, while making his way into another shop, was assaulted. Such action must not be pardoned easily. Is that the truth? I more than listening to Kaijin Dono, have investigated with the shop owners. with the shop owners. All the previous statements are in fact completely true. Huh? What did he say? Someone we thought to be our ally had unexpectedly betrayed us. Isn't this bad? When I looked at Kaijin's face, it first turned bright red but slowly paled. Well, that's to be expected. I mean, he can't even complain. Oh, and by the way, the representative is not allowed to lie. If his lies get revealed, he gets the death penalty. So without some extreme circumstances, to lie is unthinkable. Does the system that forbids those of lower birth, in this case the accused, to speak in front of the king is being abused in the worst of ways. Your Majesty, have you heard enough? Please bestow a harsh punishment on them. High with excitement, Buster proposes this to the king. Moreover, while looking at us, he shows a triumphant smile. That bastard, I really should have clobbered him. The king, with his eyes closed, refuses to move a muscle. Seeing this, those close by announced his decision. Silence. We shall now announce the verdict. Assailant Kaijin, you are sentenced to 20 years of forced labor in the mines. The rest accomplices, you are sentenced to 10 years of forced labor in the mines. That concludes this. Wait. A deep, heavy voice resounded through the hall. The king opened his eyes and looked at Kaijin. It's been a while, Kaijin. Are you in good health? More importantly, I am happy to see His Majesty in good health. Thus answered Kaijin. Seems like answering the king's questions is allowed. Enough. Those with you are the real question. Do you have intention of returning to service? The hall immediately filled with noise. Vester's face turned blue. The representative who betrayed us turned deathly pale. I fear, Your Majesty, I already have a master. That pledge has become this one's treasure. This treasure, even if it be His Majesty's order, I shall never part with. Angry words resounded in return. The royal guard directed their killing intent at Kaijin. Even then, Kaijin faced the king without a hint of fear, but rather with grand price. Seeing this, the king closed his eyes again. Is that so? Having so muttered, he ordered his attendant to call silence again. And I'll declare the verdict. Steel your hearts, Kaijin and company. I deport you from the kingdom. You shall not be permitted to remain here even a single night longer. That is all. Now begone from my sight. The king opened his eyes wide and so proclaimed. That's the air of the king, intimidating enough to make my body tremble. But even so, the king looked rather lonely to me. And thus, with the conclusion of the trial, we returned to Gaijin's store. Just went for a little drink that it became such an incident. Now then, we need to quickly pack and set off. And speaking of, is Gupta all right? Well, only 3 days had passed. With some worry in my heart, we opened the punishment room. And you have returned. Was it fun? Next time, please bring me along. Waking on top of the sofa, Gupta said his word. What the hell? How did he break free from the sticky thread? If I look closely, what I thought was a pillow was a storm wolf. Really? You really summoned them? Oi, oi, Gapta-kun, you were able to summon the wolves? Yeah, I was. Please come. I called and they came. He makes it sound so easy. No hobgoblin has succeeded with summons up until now. Maybe the nutrient deprivation may awaken some latent ability. Nah, no way. That's impossible for Gupta. Must have been just luck. And that's when I noticed the petrified dwarf that had finally noticed the wolf. What are you doing? Not going to prepare? I asked the dwarfs. Oi, oi, wait a second. Why is there a black fang wolf in here? That's right. There's a beer bank monster blocking our escape. They seem to be panicking. That was an interesting, a comical reaction. It's fine, no problem. No different from your average dog. I keep him at home. I had intended for those words to call them, but they were struck speechless instead. Since we have no time, I couldn't waste any of it for explanation. So while having the dwarfs change into traveling gear, I chased the rest out, remaining in the building. I began to observe everything, not even close to full capacity, but I decided to refrain from absorbing the whole building, as that would probably get me arrested again. Thus, we had finished the preparations for our journey, and thus we headed towards the meeting spot. But militaristic state Dwargon would be involved with it many times from now on, but to us who were escaping from it, that kind of thing we could not even imagine. Uh, that place was wrapped in silence to such extent that you wouldn't believe it was ever noisy. Since the 5 criminals had been expelled from this hall, not a single person had moved, as if breaking the silence. Now, Bester, is there anything you'd like to say? With all due respect to your majesty, this is a misunderstanding. There must be some mistake. Such was Minister Bester's unsightly appeal that seemed to want to grab onto the king. In contrast, the king had showed no emotion and remained stoic. I misunderstand? That would have been losing a faithful minister. What are you saying? I cannot fathom how come you believe that that man had sworn his loyalty to your majesty. Bester, you are mistaken. The case with Kaijin had been lost long ago. The faithful minister I had lost is none other than you. A quiet voice revealing no emotion, whereas Bester shrieked in response. I must come up with an excuse. He frantically thought that he couldn't form a coherent thought. What had the king just said? The one he lost is me? That means Bester wanted to come up with something, but no thoughts would form. I'll ask again, Buster. Do you have anything left to say? Frightening. His head was filled with fear. I have to answer his question. He thought, but no words would come out. With all due respect. Enough. I had expected more from you. I always waited, even for you to come clean on the magical battle gear incident. Yet even now, look, the king said, pointing at 2 items. Sometime previously, an attendant had brought them. Bester stared at them with empty eyes. Something he had never seen before. A liquid sphere wrapped in cloth, and a single longsword Do you know what this is? As he was asked, he carefully observed the spear he had not recognized, but the sword was the one that Kaijin always carried. Think. In place of the king, the attendant had explained, Bester's mind would require many more hours to understand the transpired. Not a revival peel, but a restoration peel made from Hippocrates, that of complete restoration. With Dwarven technology, the best they could achieve was a purity of 98%. At 98%, it would never have the effect of high-grade medicine, but this was at 99%. Bester's face lit up in surprise. He wanted to know the extraction method, but what should have surprised Bester more was the longsword. The demon ore used in the blades had begun to adapt itself to the user, so was reported. But that's impossible. It normally takes 10 years for that to happen. Bester in shock was beset by such thoughts. If that is true, such was the thought that dominated his mind. The one who had produced these items was the slime. Thanks to your efforts, we no longer have a connection to the slime. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Bester knew all too well the depth of the king's anger. There was nothing else he could say. Nothing. I have nothing to say, your majesty. Tears welled up within him. I had been abandoned by the king. He finally understood. He had just wanted to be of use to the king and to be recognized. That was his with, and yet, since when did he go wrong? Was it when he got jealous of Kaijin, or was it well before then? That he did not know all that he knew, what that he betrayed the king's expectations, the sole truth. Is that so? Then, Bester, you are forbidden from entering the kingdom ever again. Never show yourself before me from now on. However, I'll leave you some parting words. You have served well. Upon hearing the king's words, Bester responded with a deep bow, and thus left the hall to repay the foolish act he had committed. At the same time as Bester left, the guards restrained his accomplice, the treacherous representative that he saw from the corner of his eyes. Spies, keep watch over the slime. Never let him leave your sight, ever. The king had raised his voice so to give this order. That usually quiet king to raise his voice, everyone tensed at the gravity of the order, even at the cost of our lives. The spies, having so replied, disappeared. The king pondered thus. What was that monster? That was a unique creature. Letting him loose upon the world will probably end our peace. End of chapter. Chapter yun? Chapter 18? Okay, intermission bagworm, Gobta. Hello, it's Gobta here. Right now I was punished by Rimuru-sama in a thing referred as bagworm hell. Its shape is round and made from thread and hanged from the ceiling, but it doesn't make me feel any pain and suffering, though I cannot tear the thread with force. It's actually quite comfortable. Since the thread can stretch, the body can be moved, but no matter how violent the thread will not snap. It will only swing back and forth. Noticing about that a while ago, I tried to quiet down. So to leaving someone behind like this is really painful, you know. Rimuro-sama went to the night shop with the others. I think it's awful. I also wanted to go there too. However, it's free time now because it's unlikely I can escape from this on my own. I tried to get out by trying summoning my storm-fanged wolf partner for help, but that is something I cannot do at this moment. Even Captain Riguru cannot do it. It's not an easy thing to do. I guess this is a clever punishment from Rimuro-sama. I think Rimuro-sama was really stingy. I only had a little sleep, but it also same with Captain Rigoro and Chief Rigorodo too. They also furious because the same reason that the far I can told about the story. That's the far I can told about the story. Nonetheless, it's neither causing pain or discomfort. I can spend the free time without any problem. But say Rimuro-sama is really kind. I think that the reason why everyone idolized him. Well, I should wait until he come back tomorrow. Surely he will let me down. I should have patience this night. It's strange. The day has passed overnight, but Rimuro-sama and others isn't coming back yet. Did something happen? Although maybe they just spend the night at somewhere else after walking around. Honestly, my stomach's hungry. I wish they come back soon. It's dangerous. After the third day, Rimuro-sama and the others still hadn't come back. I worry about them, but it's not the time to be worrying about the others. Right now, I myself was facing a pinch. Hunger is troublesome, but there's a more serious and important problem that's going on. Pee, guru, 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 guru. My stomach hurts. I continued to injure my wish to pee, but something larger has come. His mental strength was trained to the limit by receiving multiple large excuse me, and small attacks. Moreover, on the room he was hanged on the parlor floor was laid carpet. It was better if the room floor was stone. Surely, if I defile the carpet, the dwarf Kaijin son will got mad. Rimuro-sama up until now said things such as toilet and bath as unnecessary, like you don't really care about it. Probably he will not be mad if I defile the room. Perhaps now it had become a very critical situation. Well, should I do something? Well, wait, dangerous. When I wiggle my body around while trying to injure, the movement was transmitted to the thread, making it swaying back and forth. In this situation, it's just a matter of time before the catastrophe occurs. It's impossible to cut the thread. It's also unlikely that Rimuro-sama and the others will come back. Korea, it is irritating to doing nothing. From a while ago, greasy sweat was flowing without stopping. My eyes became hazy. There is no more way to escape from here. I unleashed all I can do and give up. No, wait, thinking about it, for me, that already gave up. I remember the voice from the heaven. If you don't like it, go ask for help and summon your partner or something. Certainly Rimuru-sama had said so. I tried it to summon again. Surprisingly, my summon partner immediately came. Partner, you had come. If you don't come earlier, it will become a serious problem. Well, thought that in mind, In my mind, I was puzzled because the storm found wolf that I didn't feel any reaction up until now had come forth to me, which he doesn't really understand. But because the desperate call comes, my sense finally comes back after the third time leap. The call keep growing. After all, I goes through today. The mental strength that trained to the limit was at the edge. After a successful summoning at the last minute, I was carried by my partner to toilet, but all the exhaustion had gone released along the secret. Fortunately, because Rimuro-sama and the other were back a few days later, any traces was wiped and concealed to the end. Because I had succeeded summoning my partner, it's made him very surprised about it, making my mind clear a little. Needless to say, there is not any reason to tell anyone about the thing I have done, so I don't need to worry. That's why I'm gonna bring the secret even to the grave. Chapter 19. Return to the village. Return to the village. We were joined by Riguru and the others at the entrance of the forest. At the entrance of the forest, a total of 5 days were spent on the journey, but it's still within my estimate. Although we met many problems along the way, the main purpose of the journey was achieved. On that note, I didn't see an adventurers guild in that city. Shame. I wanted to take a look at the Freedom Association. Wanted to see if any of their members are world travelers, but I doubt there are. Also, the incident in the Dwarf Kingdom has sadly prevented me from further research on handiwork and armor. Well, it can't be helped. But I was satisfied with my new comrades, and we earned 20 gold coins, really stark gold, right there, literally. I introduced Kaijin's group to Rigoru and the rest, and they exchanged greetings. Since they'll be working together from now on, I want them to get along. Come to think of it, the dwarfs seem less prone to discrimination. Perhaps it has to do with the fact that they are themselves a half-magical race. Well, there was a problem in the beginning of our return to the village. Ranga was waving his tail happily around me. However, when I told him to carry two of the three brothers, his joyful expression quickly turned sour, and he took a step back. Then, while staring at the doobie, he added, "Will it be worse off if those two idiots get left behind?" With a look full of intent to swallow them whole, which of course terrified the dwarfs. To begin with, when they first saw Ranga. Geh, what is that? That's how surprised they were. Was that the start of one of their performances? I don't really get it, but maybe there is something amusing about it. Well, wait, Ranga, I'm just planning to mimic the black wolf to check its abilities. That's why I want to leave the two dwarves to you. Hearing my words, he stood upright as if at attention and acknowledged my lord, and he thus consented. Kaijin and the eldest brother Korm will get on my back. The middle brother Dolt and the youngest Mildo are on Ranga's. To ensure their safety, I tied them to Ranga with sticky thread. After all, in a world with no motorcycles, traveling at 80 kilometers per hour would certainly be a terrifying experience. I don't know if it's possible to run that fast, and I don't have any intention to be going that fast. Next, it's my turn. Mimicry, Black Storm, Star Wolf, Tempest, Star Wolf. As the mimicry finished, I transformed. Amazing, as expected of Master. Wow, even so, work hard to evolve into this form. I responded to Ranga with praise. I will strive to live up to your expectations. With a new goal in mind, Ranga's eyes were shining bright. The other Stormfanged wolves were all just as excited. Everyone being motivated is surely a good thing. Then I glanced over to Kaijin's group. There's foam coming out of their mouth. They fainted? That old man. What the hell are they doing? Oh well. Time to put my daily practice to use. I use sticky thread on my back. I slowly manipulate the thread to tie up Kaijin's group. And success. This way we can continue carrying Kaijin's group even while they're fainted. Thus, we depart. As a side note, I think it's a good thing that Kaijin's group had fainted. If we don't take this slowly, at the speed of 100 kilometers per hour, they could faint from the initial acceleration. The two siblings on Ranga's back, Mildo and Dold, however, seem to endure well. Never mind. That's the rumored fainting with your eyes open skill, huh? I offer my condolences. The return journey was going smoothly, primarily because the dwarves had fainted. It's probably better for them to faint instead of biting their tongues. In fact, imagine yourself in their position. Wouldn't it be unpleasant to wake up to another terrifying experience? Instead, isn't it best to let them sleep with those happy faces? Well, I'll wake them up for meals. I know I'm a bad person, though. Come to think of it. Oh, Riguro, have you succeeded at summoning your black wolf yet? Although it brings me great shame, there has been no progress. Fumu, even Riguru can't do it. The other goblins are also frustrated, the wolves as well. So only that Gupta succeeded. What, Gupta? Is that true? Yes, I called and he came. Hearing those words, the other goblins and Black Wolf's eyes lit up in determination. But that can't be. Gupta is the kind of guy who to walk to and from the Dwarf Kingdom on foot. Come to think of it, he's right. You'd think he's just a fool, but I guess he's the type of guy that can do it when it matters. Well, Gupta is a fool, but that certainly doesn't mean he's incompetent. Come to think of it, he made a 4-month journey on foot alone while scavenging for food. If he were weak, I doubt he could have done it. Thus, my mental evaluation of Gupta rose. Well, sooner or later, it will drop. When the night comes, we take a break. I'm not tired at all, but the others need a break. While everyone rests, I'll try out some abilities. The physical abilities of the Black Storm Star Wolf, Tempest Star Wolf are really high. I could feel the power gushing out. When I kicked the ground lightly, I instantly leaped into the air and galloped through the air. Combined with my reaction speed, I can probably bring out its full potential. To begin with, most of my battles to date ended with Water Blade, and the enemy were decapitated. Since strength and agility are important factors in a fight, this is a pretty good development. Enough to say that I am satisfied. The Tempest Star Wolf's combat ability, from what I imitated with Great Sage while mimicking the Black Wolf, I can instantly kill the Black Snake without any special abilities. I received an explanation on ranks in the town. The Lizard was a rank P minus via the simulation ability of the Great Sage. One could approximate the rank of other monsters. The Black Snake would never reach A rank, but being able to defeat 10 centipedes, one could rank it as A minus. Similarly, a normal not mimicked Black Storm Star Wolf is stronger than a Black Snake, but a fight against 10 of them would be impossible. No, wait, there's that ominous Black Lightning skill. My instincts scream that it's dangerous, and yet I return to being a slime and try it out. The result, Pika, 2, Chudon. Fu. My test target, a big boulder on the riverside, crumbled to dust. Thus, I judged that I should absolutely never use this skill again, so I didn't do anything. I lightning just hit there for no reason. Let's go with it. There was another such skill, the Black Snake. Noxious Breath. I shall also seal it, at least until I can properly adjust the output, especially since it uses a lot of magic power, and if not adjusted carefully, there's a high chance of hitting friendly. That is more than its power. The range was also phenomenal. Surrounding the boulder, an area of about 20 meters, 65 feet, was turned into glass by the temperature. Riguru and others rushed over asking if anything was wrong. Wow, a lightning hit right in front of me. How surprising is how I deceived them. Seems like the lightning disturbed their rest, making me feel guilty. From now on, any dangerous experiments must be carried out in some secret location. Oh well, I get the data. The simulation in my brain resumed with black lightning, even if it's not my version of it. The Black Wolf can probably win against 10 Black Snakes. Thus, it may actually be the case that the Black Storm Star Wolf, Tempest Star Wolf, holds power beyond that of an A rank. A rank monsters by themselves can devastate a small city, and are thus a pointed disaster level. Therefore, I should refrain from mimicking the Black Wolf near a city. And thus, my research continues till dawn. The next morning, the dwarves wake up with their faces still pale. Are they okay? Are you guys okay? Where are we? As their consciousness become clearer, they were puzzled due to the unfamiliar scenery around them. I immediately tell them that we were traveling towards the Goblin Village. What did you say? For a 2-month journey like this, we need to procure courage and food from some nearby town. Well, it's far too late to be surprised what to say. Let's ignore it. Well, if think about it, it's hard for a normal person to understand the distance we had already traveled. We aren't in a rush, so I take the time to explain our situation to the dwarves. As for Riguru and group, they are making food. Goblins cook in one way, they roast. That's fine for now. I have no taste buds after all. However, when I do obtain them, I should beat good cooking techniques into them. Can the goblins get used to cultured life? Whether it will happen or not, I do not know, but I plan to try out various ideas. It would be bad if they can properly cook. While eating breakfast, we discussed future plans. I explained to them that we were bound to arrive at the village in 2 days. Impossible. The dwarfs was not convinced. Thus, we resumed our journey. Along the way, we conversed using thought transmission. The dwarves can also use it, which saves us some trouble. Thought transmission is an improvement over basic telepathy. As it is stronger, allows larger network can be used during other maneuvers and has range of about a kilometer. On the second sprint, the dwarves cling to our backs without fainting. Seems like they properly prepared themselves beforehand. Since the wind pressure forced them to keep their eyes closed, I made a thin membrane with my thread to protect your eyes. Surprisingly, it works. I can finally manipulate it to some extent with just a thought. With just a thought. This much is possible when you get used to manipulating magic essence. While moving on the road, I asked the dwarfs to teach us about some common knowledge. While the dwarf talking, the goblins excitedly listens. Then we adding our common knowledge from what we hear. The conversation turns lively. I feel relieved because they become more familiar with each other. In this state, they will get along just fine in the village. The dwarf or the goblin, the origin is the same. The long-lived half-fairy dwarf, the short-lived half-demon goblin. The difference was only in the course of evolution, but the goblins rather said it evolution. Would it be degenerate? In other words, the goblin can be said to be the monster version of the dwarf. The goblin can evolve to hobgoblin, but after evolution it seems it extends the lifespan. Well, it is not just that, but that was one of the differences between demon race and fairy race. Even in the same half-fairy races, dwarfs are closer to the demons rather than the elves. Maybe that's the reason they able to become accustomed without discomfort with it with others once they get used to it. Having suddenly remembered something, I decided to ask. Kaijin, I know it's already too late to ask, but is it okay to have said those things to the Dwarf King? Didn't you admire him? Oh, about that? I do admire him. There isn't a single dwarf who doesn't. Who wouldn't admire a hero king that looks like he had come out of some fairy tale? Certainly, heroes from fairy tales come out only in bedtime stories. This hero, however, is alive and well, supporting and protecting his people as their king. Thus, it is exactly as he said, everyone respects and admires him, and everyone would surely want to be useful to such a king. Do I have the resolution to do the same? I became the goblin's master by pure chance, but how should I proceed from now on? It's fine, no doubt about it. That's the kind of myself that I wished to become. Hey, Kaijin, why have you decided to follow me? If you think about it, isn't it far better for you to return to the king's service? Upon hearing this question, this is how Kaijin answered. Gahahaha, Dana. The elf's note can mean master, but I left it in Romaji is surprisingly tactful. Why? Because it seemed interesting. That's what my instincts told me. This guy can do anything, and that was it. Don't you think it's a fine reason? A fine reason, huh? No doubt about it. Fumu, you better not complain later. I was famous for working my subordinates hard. Anyways, when there's something I can't do, I want others to help me. I want to rely on others, but if you need my help, I'll see it through. Even if it was hard. This is what I truly desire inside. I know, I nodded with satisfaction at his response. 2 days later, we arrived at the village. Our objective was achieved. We returned to the village. Author's note, since there was no change in the status, I removed it. True. End of chapter 19. Chapter 20. Toward the village's revival. Toward the village's revival. We finally arrived at the Goblin village. We left the village only 2 weeks ago, but I feel somewhat nostalgic. Well, rather than calling it a village, it was just a square surrounded by fences. While we were out on the journey, what's left was just some small tent for living. The center of the village is marked by the bonfire. I noticed a big pot placed there. Roasting. It was the only cooking method before. It seems they improved. What an impressive progress. That pot over there. If you look at it closely, from its appearance, it was made from shell of okame, big turtle. How far did they expand their hunting range? Well, it seems they did not get attacked from other monsters. I feel relieved. Immediately after entering the village, the hobgoblin villagers noticed us. We were greeted by cheers. Unfortunately, I didn't bring any souvenirs. Oh well, it seemed there are many fur, etc. from monsters they hunted. I'm sure the dwarves can turn them to clothes right away. Eventually, I want the goblins to be able to make it themselves. Now, to introduce the dwarves, I attempt to find Rigurudo too, so he can gather everyone. It seems it's not needed. Rigurudo came running, but he had a troubled face. What had happened? I tried to think the answer of my question. Welcome back. I'm sorry I didn't greet you earlier when you came back. But Rimuro-sama, there are guests. Even if he tried, even if he tried, he still feel obliged to greet me. I feel sorry. Guests? Someone I knew? Anyway, are the dwarves free in the village? I think they start inspecting around. The equipment I bought was stored in a vacant tent. I leave the care of the dwarves to Riguru. I was guided to the place where the guests were waiting. Rigurudo guided me into a large tent. Who is it? Well, when we meet, I will know. Thinking that, I entered the tent. I was surprised when I saw what was under the entrance of the tent. Over there are several goblins. Some were well dressed, with several others that accompany them, chiefs and the escorts. Why they didn't carry any weapons, even though I don't see any problem. If when I was perplexed, the goblins were all suddenly prostrate or kneeling. We greet you, O strong one. Can you please hear our humble request? They speak all at once. Strong one? It exaggerated, but are they referring to me? I discerning them all. They're saying with serious tone, and their eyes were all serious. I knew those eyes. What are they expecting from me? I thought so. Fumu, I'll hear. I decided to hear their story. Then, we are really grateful. Our request is we want to ask you so we can serve under you. One of them answered as a representative. The other all nodded in agreement. They asked with hope-filled eyes, please take care of us. They deeply begged. Honestly, I thought it was troublesome. Right now, it's time for the village revival. I don't have time to spare for you guys. Although I want to say that otherwise, the fact is the people on this village are just a few. Anyway, I predicted there will be turf wars going around here. I think it's okay to accept them in. Right now, it's okay, but what if they'll betray us later? Although I'm a bit worried about it. If that happens, I will exterminate all of them. I do not forgive betrayal. To lead monsters, wishful thinking will only get in the way. Everything must be dealt cold-headed. I ordered to determine my resolution is to accept these guys. I assured myself again, once these guys betray me, I will kill these guys. But now that I think about it, how can I easily think of killing someone? I'm surprised by myself. Oh well, it's better to worry about it later. By the way, it seems those guys are only representatives. How many people do they have? To think about it, I must come up with names to give to all these guys. All by myself, I let out a sigh. Each one of the goblins went back to their own village to bring home the news. Well then, I hear the story from the remaining delegates. Listening to the story, I summarized the contents. First, the cause that began to disturb the order in the forest. During the raid of Fanged Wolf Clan, the village of Rigurudo and others was abandoned. The cause was they could not afford to offer any warriors. The orc race, the lizardman race, the ogre race. It was some of the monsters with intelligence in this forest. They began to move in order to dominate the forest. Even until now, they had skirmish, but they are in tacit agreement, so it did not lead into armed clash. However, that is in response to the situation where the Lord of the Forest is gone. So far, it seems the move to clear away their old resentment. Originally, monster had a nature that likes to show off their power. Therefore, to clear away the accumulated resentment, each race prepared to move out. The goblin race is just a weak race. Their presence is only for being trampled by them. Each chief goblin was in panic. In this state, they will be ruined by involved in the fight. During the chief meeting, they carried out discussions every day, but they aren't very intellect. The discussion ended without resulting with any solution. Meanwhile, the news of the attack from Fanged Wolf Clan was received. Not far from it. Therefore, Rigurudo's village was forgotten. However, around the time the food stocks became become scarce, there came a bad news. It was reported that a new threat in the forest has appeared. The rumor was about the black beasts and their riders. Those riders are running within the forest just like it was in plains. They hunted powerful monsters in the forest. When they received the report, they all were astonished. Who were those riders? Apparently, that's what it looked like for those goblins. In response of this report, opinion was divided. The first opinion claims that any day now, those riders will take them under their protection. The second opinion claims that it's too suspicious. It must be some kind of a trap. The ones who said it's a trap, there is no reason to bring us into a trap. They didn't listen when being persuaded. In addition, even if it's not a trap, it isn't necessary for us to accept. Without intellect, only sadness. The words for conclusion can come out. Therefore, they select a person as representative to ask for asylum. They told me that was the reason why they went to this place. I understand. Well, it was a good story from a small fries. However, even if the goblins are small, weak, and lack intellect, there will be no one willing to help them. Either way, I decided to accept the request, but only those willing to come here. I told this to the representative of the goblins. Hearing my word, those goblins went back to their own villages. From now on, there is a problem. I think that after looking at the goblins that came here, isn't that a little too much? In the village's space, there are only a few accommodations, or rather, why I must be worried for such a thing. For a few days, several axes were created. The newly created axes were used to cut trees. The collected timber was going to be processed and would be used later to build housing. I leave the charge of the timber-related things to Kaijin. The three dwarf brothers diligently processed the fur to make clothes for Hobgoblin. The three dwarf brothers, as usual, looked at the women, Gobelinas with a sharp eye. It might be good if they finish it quickly. At the time, I told them to hurry their works. Goblins came. From the four clans, collectively, there is about 500 people. The rest of it, the opposing faction stayed at the villages. They chose to stay, but right now the works is still not done. That's what I thought. I then checked mind map. I'm looking for a suitable location near water source so I can open farmland. I walked to the nearest place that meets my condition. The place is in the vicinity of the cave from beginning. Fumo, I called Yugurudo asking about the situation around that area. Around there was non-aggression territory. Around there was non-aggression territory because unlike in the forest inside the cave, there is a nest of powerful monsters. There will be no problem. I used to live over there. Wow, is that true? No, I was born over there, so it's okay. It's okay. There will be no problem at all. As I expected, gozaimasu na. This Rigorodo truly admire you. Is it really great? I was just born in that cave. Why does he have to be impressed with that? Well, as long as he's satisfied. Immediately, I went to talk with the youngest brother from the three brothers. Mildu had architectural related knowledge. I and Mildu are consulting about various things. I told Mildu any knowledge I had related for various constructions from my previous life that I could remember. The current technology in this world is measured it is on decent level with magic intertwined together. In addition to my knowledge, I had a plan to measure and survey the local area. I want to make some of kind treatment facilities for excrement, which was necessary for goblins and dwarves. But it's not necessary for the black wolves. Anyway, you can make an underground sewer or fermenting the excrement. I thought it could as fertilizer, but when seen from a sanitation side, it was common sense that it would easy for it to become the source of infection for infectious disease. That was what Mildo said to me. Well, can monsters like goblins become sick? It's what I thought, but it seems it's normal for getting epidemic. It's fate of weak monsters. Well, if it's because poor sanitation, they would surely become sick. In case of the goblins, the number of birth exceed the number that die because the strong fertility. It seems it's possible to maintain the numbers, but by evolving, it seems the fertility had depleted. In exchange for that, it seems that lifespan extended. Mildo was well informed, though he didn't know much in topics related to processing the excrement. I confirmed that there was only a few world travelers in this world. And this world had its own unique knowledge about spirit engineering. I heard it's mysterious and there weren't many explanations about it, because there weren't many details known regarding the benefit of the excrement. He was surprised when listening to my story. Thus, the conclusion of the meeting, Mildo was appointed as the captain of the construction team. I let him take care of things that were his specialty. To Rigurudo, I instructed him to assign some people under Mildo to go survey the project site. Ranga also accompanied them just in case. I think the monsters from the cave will not go out, but there is a possibility. If that happened, I'm sure Ranga can take care of it. Thus Mildo and others, the construction team departed. The next was naming. The the thought is too depressing to give name one by one for all 500 people any longer. I think it would turn to be to the forbidden ABCD. But I don't like to do something half-hearted. Immediately I started giving them names. Again, I went to low activity state after giving them all names, but I was able to give name to everyone. The fatigue was less than the previous naming. It is something that you do not want to do again. I summoned the chieftains. They all kneeling in front of me were the evolved chieftains, led by Rigurudo. Rogurudo. All views side by side. It's Rariro, Rero. Coincidentally, Ra became Ranga. I think it all appropriate, so it's okay. There is no one that object. I thought it in frantic. I forget about the names appeal. I will work very hard. It was one of a good man appeal. The one that are left over was a female. It's possible to determine the gender of goblins, but it hardly shows in the appearance of, but when they evolve, the differences is recognizable. I thought some feminine name like Ririna. In the future, I wonder if this name can become serious or not. Although such idea crossed in my mind, I decided to against such thought. It's not needed right now. While in front of me, the hobgoblins, I wonder if they're capable with hierarchical relationship or not. Everyone is friends, everyone is equal. Those things were impossible in real life. In particular, though for monsters that emphasizes on power, a clear chain of command was necessary. I decided, listen, I bestow to you guys these positions. It was declared. Rigorodo was promoted to Goblin King, and the remaining chieftains become Goblin Lord. In the surroundings, all of the goblins in the village prostrate themselves. I gulped my own saliva when watching such spectacle. Waha, we humbly receive your order. With that word, as the signal thunderous cheer rose up. A new history for Goblin has begun. For crafting tools, Kaijin had prepared it. For clothes, under the command of Gormendold, had been produced steadily. For timber, it steadily provides the village with vacant land. By the time it was confirmed that all of the goblins had evolved, the planned construction for the new village began after Mildew came back after the survey. All were well. I checked the construction area for the new village. From its scale, it should be called town rather than a village, our new home. After confirming all the preparations and equipments, we all departed towards the new place, step forward, for our first step to create a new country. End of chapter 20.